What's up, guys? Just give me a second. I'm going to wait till a few more people get in. Trying to get over to the chat, too, so I can to talk to everyone. Let me know if the sound and the audio is okay. I cannot get to my chat, though. What the hell? I want to talk to my Fuji fanboys. Yeah, so all the specs have they've leaked. And I tell you, it is, well, not leaked. I mean, like, everything is out now. And I mean, it has been a ridiculous week for cameras. I mean, so much has came out, so much has materialized. So many different camera manufacturers keep bringing out all the, all the stuff. I mean, like, we've got Canon, who had their release yesterday. We had Nikon, who had their release a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's just insane how much has been is being released, right? So all of that has made for an extremely busy last couple of weeks for all of us in the camera review business, right? But this new release, and we've been talking about it for quite some time, especially if you're into Fuji in the first place. We knew a lot about this camera before today. The problem is that it's made it even better considering all of the less than stellar specs for the other cameras. Now, I'm going to just, put it out there. I am a Fuji fanboy like a mofo. But I will point out its flaws when I believe that it deserves it. And one of the first things that we can go ahead and just get out of the way right now, that it does not have IBIS. So the X-T3 does lack in-body image stabilization. This is more of a photography-centric camera, though. Okay, this is made for photography. And while IBIS is nice to have, I have said in the past that it generally seems like when Fuji feels that a specific focal length generally deserves some stabilization, they just go ahead and put it in the lens. Yeah. What's going on, Patrick? He said, I should have leaked more. Yeah, you should have. But this is absolutely a stunning release, especially in the comparative sense between what Canon and Nikon have released just in the last week. And I'm going to go through and let you all comment as we go along, because I don't know of any other company that's just cramming as much possible stuff into their camera. And maybe they're doing it because they feel like they're at a disadvantage because it's an APS-C size sensor, right? So everyone thinks that full frame is the best and it's the most awesome, and it has all these amazing advantages over crop sensor cameras. I don't find that to be true at all. And it didn't hold true for me even when I was shooting Sony. But once I got Fujifilm in my hands and really start to become familiar with, like, their actual process, how they do it, because everything has not only design language but also operability language, and Fujifilm is very meticulous. And of course, I mean, they're a Japan company. At least the Fujifilm XT2, it just has something about it, right? And anyone that's ever shot it will tell you that. Maybe it's the retro styling, maybe it's the heft and the build quality. I don't know what it is. It just feels like a premium product from the second you pull it out of the box. So again, I'm a Fuji fanboy, and I probably sound like I'm gushing, but just to look at this camera, and I've got a link down in the description so you can check that out. it looks like they've taken a cue from the XT100 and added that screw-on grip on the side, right? That thing was, it was actually pretty good. Like I liked the ability to add just a bit of extra purchase onto the grip without having to actually buy a battery grip. So the fact that they've got this on here, and it adds a bit of ergos to the camera, because the XT2 used the battery grip to add the ergos. So I don't know if the new battery grip is going to replace that, or if they've just added that in case you don't even want the battery grip. Apparently, you're going to get the full benefit of all of the like you're not going to have to depend on the battery grip for upgraded or enhanced performance. I think some people were a little bit put off by that, but to a certain extent, it did make sense because the camera by itself performs really well for the average person. But for anyone that was maybe a wedding photographer or an event photographer, if they wanted that extra, performance bump and they wanted to get it in a place where it felt more premium, a bit more professional, had better burst, better battery life, the whole thing, then they could go ahead and add that on as a secondary, in which I did immediately. I mean, it wasn't even a question for me. I was going to get it. So, John Banks says, I think I've leaked a little bit. Den says, did you see the photo of the silver one with the 56mm on Fuji Love? I did. I don't know if I'm going to get the silver one or not. I'm going to pre-order as soon as I get done with the live stream. And by the way, if any of you all are planning on pre-ordering, I've got a link down in the description. It totally helps the channel out. I appreciate it if you do. If not, that's fine. I'm not gonna shill for Fuji, but I really think it deserves to be shilled for, considering all the stuff that has recently been released by Canon and Nikon. I mean, it's unbelievable, really, when you compare what we're going to be getting with this camera as compared to what Canon and Nikon gave in their camera, but either artificially crippled or artificially gimped for the sake of protecting other products. I think that is probably one of the biggest advantages to Fujifilm, is that they only have one size sensor other than the GFX, and that's a completely different category. So when they are putting things in these cameras, I mean, they just man up. No offense to the ladies out there that got big sacks, but figuratively speaking, they man up and they just throw everything that they possibly can effectively into their camera. So, Tim Covington says, yesterday I had noticed that the XT2 had dropped in price on Amazon. I'm really considering switching to Fuji and getting the XT2. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's dropped any more from where it was. It was $1,099, so effectively $1,100. And so that was like $500 off. So brand new, that Fujifilm XT2 was $1,599. Okay, so this is a $1,600 camera, brand new. The Fujifilm XT3, even with all of these massive improvements, is coming in, as we predicted, as Patrick over at Fuji Rumors let us all know, coming in at $1,499. That is $500 less than the Nikon Z6, and that is $800 less than the Canon R. While both of those two cameras are, in fact, full frame, I would take the Fujifilm XT3 just based on the look of it alone. I mean, I just love the styling. But they have managed to pack so much more into this camera than even Canon and Nikon were not only able to pack in, but there's no limitations. Okay? And with both of those cameras, both the Fuji or the Canon and the Nikon, you're dealing with whole new mounts, whole new proprietary stuff. There's going to be absolutely nothing out there. You're going to have to buy adapters right out of the box. And what was it? Nikon's was going to be 150, and Canon's was going to start at 100. And then if you wanted the one with the control ring, it was going to be 200. And then if you want filters, hey, instead of just screwing them onto the front of your lens, you can put them in this little filter, and you can drop us $400 for that convenience. really is brutal. I don't understand what the hell is going on over there at these camera companies. But have you used the XT100 for vlogging yet? I have tried it. Yeah, I'm not particularly a fan of the video. I'll have a full review coming out pretty soon. I don't have it. It's over there in my bag. Fuji Rumors. He says you can use a USB-C port on the X-T3 to charge the camera with a power bank while using the camera. I did not know that. That must be something new. Someone, I guess someone else got a chance to try it out and reported that. That is going to be a huge boon to people that do long form video and don't want to drain the internal battery so that they can quickly disconnect. Not to mention that Canon was going to have to use a special adapter. I mean, see, they put on the box able to be charged in body via USB-C, but they don't tell you that you have to have a special adapter, cable, cord, or whatever in order to get that done. So when you do that, when you only tout the good part of the sentence and then you don't tell us the rest of the story and then we find out on our own, it's like, oh man, what the hell were you thinking? So Sebastian Salazar says, I just saw in another review that the XT2 battery grip will not fit the XT3. That is correct. It is going to be slightly different. And according to what I've read, the Fujifilm XT2 requires the battery grip in order for enhanced performance. The XT3 will not require the battery grip for the enhanced performance. You're going to get every bit of the performance in the camera without the grip. So if you want the grip for the extra battery power or the portrait mode and still want to be able to have your control wheel and your shutter release and all that kind of stuff on the grip, then you go ahead and get it. A lot of people will just leave it off if they're not, into huge shooting sessions like at weddings, stuff like that. But if you don't want it, but you still want the maximum amount of performance, you don't have to buy the battery grip in this particular case. It is a little bit sad, but I'm not selling my XT2. This camera, as you can read right there, this is made in Japan. So while it might be, it's made in Japan. And this, I mean, if you haven't shot Fuji and you're looking to get into the system, I think with the price drop on the XT2 right now is the perfect time. Hell, even the XT1 is still a fantastic camera. It's only 16 megapixels, but there was plenty of stuff that was shot on the XT or cameras that were way less than megapixels in years gone by. So 16 megapixels is more than enough for most people. I know we're all chasing those bigger numbers, but either one of those cameras right now, even if you can't afford the $1,500 for the XT3, the XT2 is available, and it is dope as it is dope as hell, and I'm not getting rid of mine. I'm not going to be trading mine in to get the XT3 or anything. The XT2 will stay in my stable probably forever. I mean, it was my first real introduction to the Fuji system, and I've enjoyed it immensely. And when you kind of create an emotional bond with something, I think it's very important. I still have my first film camera ever. When you develop an emotional bond with something, you should definitely keep it. If it's just a tool and you have to have it, and you have to use it, fine, go ahead and sell it, get rid of it, whatever. But when you develop an emotional bond with something, definitely keep it. Memories are good. Yeah, Jason says 3 new cameras in 2 weeks. It has been a very, very busy time for us. Owen says, wow, you're up chatting early today. I told you, man, I get up at like 4:30. I was awake at about 4:30 this morning, and it's 5:52 a.m. right now. Mark says, after seeing all the recent camera news, I think the XT3 will blow everything else out of the water. Maybe not in terms of sensor size, but in terms of feature set, image quality, amazing customer service. It's very hard for me to see why people would look and say, like, especially Canon, where they clearly have the ability to give their users as much as humanly possible, right? And then hold back or gimp it or overcharge for some extra stuff. This camera out of the box with all of its features are going to be a total of $1,500 bucks. $100 less than their XT2. I mean, like, what does that message convey to you all? I mean, I'll just ask you all. I mean, I know what it conveys to me, but I'd like to know what kind of message does that send to someone who maybe hasn't picked up the Fuji system yet. Not to mention, hang on one second. Yeah, Den says dual card slots. We've been pissing and moaning a lot about that here lately. So for all those people that require dual card slots, the Fujifilm XT3, the Fujifilm XT2 had it. But right out of the box, the Fujifilm XT3 will have dual UHS 2 card slots. Valentine says you can take the side door down to UHS 2s. That's correct. Mel Santiago, XT3 plus the upcoming XF 33mm f1 for the win. Yeah, I'm telling you, anyone that's been waiting for some of these like new lenses, I'm really excited about the lens roadmap. I am extremely anxious to get my hands on the 8 to 16mm. I don't know how much more useful it's going to be to me doing real estate photography. I think the 10 and 24 has been pretty damn awesome as is. So to have that extra width, I don't know if I'm even really going to need it. And it's $2,000 but I still want to try it out. I mean, it is a beast of a camera. Jason Navarrete says the high bitrate video sells it for me. Yeah, I mean, I think we're getting 10-bit total 420 in camera and a full 10-bit 422 external via HDMI. I think the bitrate is going to be 450 megabits per second. I did notice, I haven't heard anyone else talk about this yet, but it is going to record in MPEG-4 or M4V or whatever, but it's also going to record in the higher efficiency H.265. I don't know if anyone else caught that. So whatever your video was before, you know, whatever the size was before, if it's H.265, that's effectively going to have the video size roughly, depending on how they process. But you could easily take a 64 gigabyte HS2 card, and it effectively would make it 128. So John Banks says the only bummer is the micro HDMI. I hate those things. Yeah, I mean, it sucks pretty bad. I don't do much HDMI out at all anyway. I like to do as much as I possibly can internal. But I will say that the few times that I have hooked up the HDMI micro, it hasn't been a huge deal. But then again, I've just been setting it down on a desk or a table, not, you know, hooking it up to a bunch of shit, trying to do monitor out or Atomos Ninja stuff or, you know. Oh, man. Need to wake up. Mark Egger says, I still have the XT1, still a very viable option. You can get them for about $350 on the used market. True story. Adil says, Sony rumor says there's an announcement next week. Oh, I know there is. Sebastian says the XT3 has -3 EV, an improvement from the -1 EV on the XT2. How significant is the noise reduction of this new spec? Massively. Massive. That is a huge. I mean, one of the weaker points of the XT2 was the fact that it only had up to -1 EV. So the low light autofocusing performance was not nearly as good as what it could have been. I don't do much low light shooting anyway. I mean, I try to light my scenes appropriately beforehand. The only people that mainly complained about it were people that needed it you know, where they weren't able to pre-plan where they were going, you know, what kind of lighting conditions. Generally, it's going to be wedding photographers that need to use it, and they need their camera to be able to expose internally, at least for a few seconds, so that it can acquire focus, and then it reverts back. And if you ever notice that, your viewfinder will kind of brighten up a little bit, so it'll expose brighter, trying to acquire focus. That's essentially what it's doing. Now we're going to get -3 for that. It's much, much easier now to acquire focus in those low light conditions. And -3 EV, while not nearly as impressive as the Canon's -6 EV, it's going to be a huge boon, especially on a crop sensor camera. Let's see what else. Desi says, and Fuji's regular firmware updates. Oh my God. I mean, that has probably been the #1 best thing I've ever experienced with a camera company before in my life. The Fujifilm system regularly putting out firmware updates has been unbelievable. I mean, it has been awesome. I mean, it's not like they're just fixing little bugs or little quirks. They add features in their firmware. They don't charge for them. You don't have to send them in to get these new features. You just download them onto your SD card, and you got brand new features. I mean, I don't know. None of these other camera companies get it. It's more about, I mean, I realize that every company has to make money in order to stay, you know, in business. But when a company goes above and beyond what they're supposed to do, what they're expected to do, you bought the camera based on what it said right out of the box. That's what you paid for. You're not entitled to new features. You're not entitled to new, you know, perks and stuff like that. But Fuji just gives it to you. What's that say to you? What does that say? Camera's going to be less than what the X-T2 was? And they give you stuff. They give you some stuff for nothing, just for being a Fuji customer. It's pretty dope. Other camera companies, I mean, Sony just releases a whole new camera. Instead of fixing stuff and then putting it in an update, they just make new cameras literally every 6 months. And I think that's pretty awesome. You know, when they're able to upgrade the hardware, they release a new camera. I think that's pretty cool. They are pretty good about firmware updates, but they don't release features. Full on brand new. Like 2 months ago, this camera did not have 1080p 120 frames per second. They released a firmware update. They tacked that on and also improved the face and eye autofocus for us. It's pretty awesome. Adil says the price on the X-T3 is tempting. Is it not? It should be tempting to everyone. That is aggressive pricing. Like I said, $500 cheaper than the Nikon Z6 and $800 cheaper than the Canon EOS R. More features. It's brutal. It's brutal how awesome Fuji has done in pricing themselves so competitively that it does make it a compelling option even for full frame shooters. It really does. I don't know if they're going to improve the reliability, because I did hear a few people, not many, but I did hear a few people saying that they had some problems with their Fuji X-T2. Lee from over at Z Pro Media said that he had some reliability issues with his. And there was another camera channel who said that they had finally went from Fuji to Sony because they had some reliability problems, or it could have been just because the feature set of the A7 Mark III was just that compelling. And to that, I will say Sony did a fantastic job on the A7 III. They priced it aggressively. They threw the kitchen sink in that thing, and it did make it a very, very compelling option. And that's the reason I think Canon and Nikon really should. They should be so worried right now. I mean, they're just doing the typical same old Canon, Nikon shit. Man, I am so glad that I sold all my Nikon stuff 5 years ago. I am so glad. All right, let's see what else. Mark says, Fuji cares about its customers. They prove it time and time again. Yeah, I mean, if it was just kind of like a one-off thing, I mean, I wouldn't gush. But they do it consistently all the time. So I'm gushing. Valentine says, I was surprised about DP review, initial review. iFocus, much better. It is. I saw the video too. I'm extremely impressed. And honestly, I didn't think it was that horrible to begin with. You know, like I said, I mean, I tend to light my scenes appropriately, but I mean, I never found it horribly unusable. But I mean, it's definitely nowhere where the Sony's eye autofocus is. Paulo says, shooting weddings with the X-T3 since March, came from Canon, and the only thing I wish is the perfect sync between camera and flash in daylight. Phil, X-T3 is not there yet. I agree. I mean, every offering is going to have some sort of drawback, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. Paulo says, with Canon, I'm perfectly confident in my work. In a wedding day with Fuji, I have to be very careful and need to keep checking the back screen. I've noticed when I've had to shoot fast, you know, where I'm in a rush for an event or whatever, I do get slightly nervous. But the only reason I feel that it's that way is because I think that Fujifilm cameras on the average have a tendency to underexpose. And while I usually shoot in RAW when I'm doing client work, I almost always have my exposure compensation values up about 2/3 of a stop. Every single Fujifilm, even the XH1, seems to underexpose about roughly 2/3 to a full stop. So I just keep my exposure compensation on, 2/3. Mark Shirley says, you need to add 400 pounds to the price to get decent battery life. Oh, you're talking about the battery grip. Well, I mean, if you're doing professional work, but I think that most professionals are probably going to buy the battery grip anyway. I mean, even with big, thick DSLRs, I mean, if you're carrying around a 1DX Mark II or whatever, I mean, you have a built-in battery grip. You know, I think most professionals, they like grips in general. You know, they like the ability to just shoot forever. So with the new improved battery system, though, I think it's the 126S, those batteries get about 50 extra shots per battery anyway, and they're shipping with all the new Fujifilm cameras anyhow. So John Banks says 200 megabits per second in H.264 and H.265, 400 megabits per second, all I. Yep. And 200 megabits per second in a compressed codec is insane. Like, you can still do a lot with that amount of data. I know, because I've done a lot with a whole lot less. Martin says, video is exciting on this camera. I've been hoping Fuji would step up on this, and they have big time. I think it's a massive improvement. Of course, I love video. I really do. And Fujifilm, as long as I'm behind the camera with my X-T3, I have a pretty good sense of how it operates and how it feels and everything. If they made some smaller, more lightweight video lenses, things that transition between the exposures more smoothly, much like Sony and Canon do, I think they would have a huge winner on their hands. Because the X-T3, in all reality, was a fairly small camera. I mean, it wasn't massive. It wasn't like some big, thick-ass DSLR, you know. It's not like that. So if they could come up with some smaller, lighter weight lenses that actually do transitions, if that motor, I always had a problem with the motor in the exposure, going sort of like that ding, 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 ding. It would just step instead of that sort of gradual ramp toward the correct exposure. If they've improved that, I'm going to be one happy camper. Paulo says, that I know. Canon 5D Mark II had 2 firmware updates. I own X-T2 for 1 year and had about 5 firmware updates. Does this say something? Yeah. Yeah, it does. Man, hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's see. What else we got? David Christian said, love the specs, but I will keep my X-T2. Can't afford gas. Oh, man, I can afford gas, but I don't really think... Honestly, I really don't think I need the X-T3. Let me just tell you all that. I do not think I need the X-T3. I have yet to hit a brick wall with the X-T2. In all reality, most of us don't need jack shit. We've been able to do everything we've been able to do up to this point with everything else that we've had. We don't really need a new camera. But I do think it's exciting to at least try it out. And I'm going to pre-order one because I am afraid, and that's the biggest problem with camera reviewers. We get new gear in all the time. We get to check stuff out all the time. And just having access to it, and you get to play with it, and you're like, oh my God, that is amazing. And then, your wallet cries. So I'm going to get it, I guess. I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but I need it. Do I need it? I don't need it. I haven't hit a brick wall yet. What do I need it? All right, what else we got, man? Shit. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired today, but I was pretty excited about the release that I wanted to go ahead and talk about it, but I've got such a long day today. I'm going out of town for the entire weekend. Going to be traveling up north for a few days, and I've got some videos that I pre-recorded for the rest of the week because I don't know if I'm going to be doing any video while I'm gone. I might, but I'm not for sure. Let's see, what else? Desi says 1,349 UK pounds. Man, that's cheap. I told you. Everyone was a little bit concerned that the pricing wasn't going to be right because all the specs that were being talked about, all the specs that were being released, thanks to Patrick over there at Fuji Rumors, it just sounded like too much for the price point. So a lot of people were thinking, oh man, this, it's probably still going to be, I don't know, maybe at the very least $16.99. There were a few people that were speculating there's no way that it could be that cheap. It's probably going to be more like $18.99 to match the Canon stuff, or what we thought was going to be Canon pricing. But it is still going to be $18.99 if you decide to get the 18-55 kit lens. And if you do not own the 18-55 kit lens and you are a Fuji shooter, you're dumb. You're just dumb. That lens, for its price, as part of a kit for $300, is a steal. Absolute steal. True story. I don't know. I've raved about that lens enough, but it is a steal, and if you do not have it, get it. Yeah, Owen Wagner says the photography team guys switched to Sony. If that was the one you were talking about, they had some issues with the XH1, if I recall correctly. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was the XH1 or the XT2, but yeah, I believe that's it, the photography team guys. Owen also says, I like that Fuji is marketing 216 or 2.16 million phase detection pixels. I'm guessing they are doing that to compete with Canon's 5,655 AF points. Yep, I would assume so. I really would. I mean, it's an impressive number to put on the box, really. Mel says, Fujifilm's aesthetics and color science won me over. Fujifilm aesthetics are absolutely incredible to me. I loved and always have the old like Nichromat and the old F series line of cameras. I love that retro styling. I love the external knobs, wheels, and buttons because of convenience and access, not having to dig through a menu, which was one of my major gripes with the Sony system. Being able to just look down at my camera and see everything. Is my aperture set? Absolutely. Is my ISO set? Absolutely. Shutter speed? Good to go. And never even have to turn the camera on. The wake up time on the X-T2 is literally like a half a second. It does not take very long for the X-T2 to turn on and be ready to shoot. With the Sony system, I always had to wait so long. It took like 3 to 5 seconds on average for the Sony cameras to boot up, get ready to shoot, and that was just too much. It was just too much time, especially if you're not always at the ready. If you kind of got it slung, down beside you, it just took a long. It took a long time. Let me see here. See, I don't have nearly the amount of people on this live stream as I did for the Canon live stream yesterday. And that's fine, man. Us Fuji people, we know what's up. We don't have to believe the hype. You didn't see any big-ass hype campaign out of Fuji. Their hype is the camera itself. No, none of this horseshit reinventing mirrorless. Join the revolution. It's laughable. Valentine just says, I just saw DP review video features of the X-T3 at the end. Oh my God. I love this camera. Face tracking is amazing. Yep. SE says Fujifilm should have improved ergonomics. There are so many things that could have been improved. Well, I mean, if you want improved ergos, you go with an XH1. Even though I know that the XH1 is not up to par with the X-T2, the X-T2 has gone through a million firmware updates to get it to where it is right now. It wasn't bad at all when it first came out, but I mean, the successive and almost compulsive firmware updates have turned this camera into an absolute steal at its current price on Amazon. I believe that for ergos, the XH1 is probably more of a DSLR shooter's preferred version. So go that route and keep it, because I'm telling you, Fujifilm will improve every gripe that you may or may not have. You may not even know you didn't like something, and they're going to improve it or add to it or enhance the features of it. It has in-body image stabilization already. You're not going to be disappointed. I'm telling you. I keep telling people this, especially people just either looking at the Fuji system or looking at getting their first camera. Fujifilm does not disappoint you. If there's any gripes or any complaints about the camera when it first launches, they're going to fix it without question. The firmware updates will show up. Marcus says, "You're cool, man. Love the morning jolt." Hey, man, I appreciate that. I really do. Sorry I'm not as animated today, man. I am exhausted. I worked my ass off yesterday after I got done with my live stream. And I was planning on editing another morning jolt this morning, but I just don't have it in me, guys. I really don't. I am physically exhausted to the point where I would really just like to go back to bed. But that goddamn internal alarm clock, it's brutal. Oh, it's brutal. Carrie Lee says, I'm waiting for the XH2. Man, I'm telling you, all the lessons that they've learned from the XH1, I think the XH2 is going to be a vastly improved video camera from Fuji. I don't know when they're going to come out with it. They seem to be on a 2-year camera cycle. So, Jose says, good morning from Chile, man. What's up, brother? Jason says, I shot the U.S. Open of surfing last month, and I was one of the 5 people shooting with mirrorless cameras. Everyone else has DSLR still. Yeah, and honestly, a lot of the people in the press, they get their cameras from the press corps shop or whatever, and the press corps shop at you know, their place of business or work or whatever, they usually just buy DSLRs and then hand them out to all their photographers. Alan says, others are focused on hype and marketing. Fuji is focused on doing the stuff right. And we've seen that time and time again. No hype, no bullshit ad campaigns, just pure unadulterated joy from using your camera. You know, you don't need hype to sell cameras when your cameras just work. So I am actually one of the, I mean, I know some people really like a huge visual and design language change when they get something new. I am perfectly content with the design aesthetic of the Fujifilm X-T3. I am so glad that they didn't change much about it. I don't think that there is much to change about this camera. So when I do finally go from one camera to the next, or when I swap from one camera to the next, it's not going to feel like I'm having to relearn a whole new camera. This is very familiar. And because of the the X-T1 and the X-T2 success, I think it was a very, very wise decision of Fuji to keep the body styling very similar. Or damn near exactly the same. I mean, there's only a few minor things. Okay, where am I at now? Valentine says, next move from Fuji, GFX battery in an X-T4 camera, I believe. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I would not hate on a single battery improvement as far as the life of that battery. I have yet to run into much issue with the battery life, though, because if I'm in a crucial situation where I'm working for a client, I usually take the battery grip with. Like if I'm shooting a real estate job, I mean, I'm taking the grip with, even though I don't even think I need it. I mean, who's going to take 350 shots of a house? It just doesn't happen. But I still take the battery grip with me no matter what if I'm working. If I'm not, I can leave the battery grip off and just toss in a couple of batteries in my pocket. But if I'm working for a client, I always take the battery grip anyway. So, I mean, it never really bothered me one way or the other. David says, from the Canary Islands, good morning. Good morning, sir. The Canary Islands, man. Lucky you. Hope the weather's nice. It is humid and hot here. Today's high is going to be 90 degrees, probably 99% humidity. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. Blaze King says, okay, he's talking to someone else. Carrie says, Sony has been laughing their ass off for the last few days until Fujifilm came. I'm sure they are not laughing anymore. Especially for their crop sensor cameras. I think that they are going to have a home run with the new crop sensor camera. I'm surprised that they haven't released a successor to the A5100 yet. I actually used to really love the A5000 and the A5100. I love that camera. I don't know if they're going to come out with an A6700 or an A7000 camera, but I have been advising anyone new that wanted to get into a system, whether, you know, no matter what the system was, whether it was Micro Four Thirds or crop sensor or full frame, I think the best value for your money is Fujifilm. It really is, because if it's the perfect compromise between Micro Four Thirds and full frame, while not quite as lightweight as the Micro Four Thirds setup is, you do get better low light performance and better dynamic range generally because of the larger sensor. But you don't have to carry around the weight of the full frame glass. No matter how small you make the bodies in full frame, you can't get around the physics of full frame glass that is required to get results. So I found that the crop sensor is the perfect compromise between the two. Everything else I can shoot on my phone, honestly, or an action cam, or a drone. Everything else can be done with much, much smaller sensors. But if you want an interchangeable lens camera that is a nice compromise between all three systems, right in the middle. Right in the middle. It's a big FU to my Nikon full frame days. Let's see. Jose says, I'm a Fujifilm XT2 shooter. I'm waiting for the XT3 when it comes here. Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to be shipping in like 2 weeks. Not even at the end of September. I believe it's shipping September 20th. So what is it today? The 6th? Yeah. So literally in 2 weeks, you'll have it. 14 days is all you have to wait, my friend. Honestly, I have not heard much about an X Pro 3. I haven't heard, Jose. I'm not a massive fan. I love the look of rangefinders, but I'm not a huge fan of using rangefinders. I don't know, you get used to you know, standard SLR style cameras, and going to a rangefinder and having that extra frame, that extra viewing angle around the frame, to me, it feels a little disorienting. But it does help you lead your frame a little bit better, so you can kind of see what's going to pass through your frame. Some people really like it, though. They're big fans. I just don't happen to be one of them. I mean, I can use them, and I can get decent results with them. I don't know. I love the look. Greetings from Switzerland. Mind Rover, what's going on, man, in Switzerland? Mike says, I am so glad I waited, and the wait is worth it. Definitely getting this. Still keeping my Canon gear, though. Yeah, I mean, if you don't need to sell off gear in order to get new gear, and it's still working for you, or you have to have it for specific jobs, you know, there's no reason to sell. Phil says, video specs look nice. No IBIS, no thanks, must have IBIS. No, you don't. I mean, IBIS is nice. It really is. But most of the stabilized lenses that Fuji comes out with have blown me away. Like I said, hang on, I'll show you. All right, this is my Fujifilm 100 to 400 lens. This thing is a beast. And that optical image stabilization switch, when I'm shooting handheld, I can get sharp images handheld all day long. It is unreal how good their lens stabilization is. Now, a lot of people want IBIS, but I think you don't need IBIS in most cases. I've said it before that generally, when the focal range requires some type of stabilization, whether it be macro or extreme close-ups or extremely far away, Fuji generally puts the stabilization in the lens for you, okay? So when the focal range calls for it, you get it. Boom. This lens, I would not even own this lens. This lens is stupid expensive. Paid $1,800 for this lens. But I absolutely love lunar photography. And this puppy has to stay in my stable, because every time I see an absolutely gorgeous full moon, I have to go outside and shoot it. I don't know what it is. It's a goddamn obsession. And I wish I didn't have it. It's like, how many pictures of the moon can I honestly take and be satisfied, you know? But I can't. Every time I see one, I'm just like, oh my God, that is absolutely gorgeous. So that's the reason you see a lot of lunar photography and stuff on my Instagram, because I love the moon. I love it. And then when the solar eclipse happened back last August, I don't know if you all have seen my shots of the solar eclipse, but I used this lens on the X-T3, and I shot manually myself. I didn't put it in any special modes. I exposed myself using the Breakthrough Photography X4 ND10 on this lens. The filter, the ND filter. And I think I had some of the best. I mean, I did have it on a tripod. I did not shoot it handheld. But I think I had some of the most impressive of all my peers, some of the most impressive solar eclipse photographs. And that's not me bragging. I mean, I just think that this system does such a phenomenal job. It is just absolutely exciting. The images were sharp, they were crisp, they were detailed. You could see every little crater on the side of the moon as the sun was passing behind it. I mean, I was literally taking photographs of an object that is 93 million miles away, and I was capturing hot spots on the sun with this lens, no problem. So, all right, let me get back to these comments. Mel says your X Pro 3 predictions. I think that it's basically going to be X-T3. Honestly, it'll be X. I hope that they improve a couple of things. Matter of fact, I was just playing with the X Pro 2 maybe 2 weeks ago. There's a couple that, I mean, for a rangefinder, I think the X Pro 2 is already a super solid offering. I don't think that it needs a whole lot, but I mean, I'm not an X Pro 2 shooter, so I don't know all the intricacies of the camera itself, what kind of quirks some people may or may not have with the camera. But honestly, I don't even think the X-T2 needed a whole lot either. I mean, we're chasing specs at this point. When you find a camera that just sings to you, like this one does to me, you don't lust after very much, I'm telling you guys. Let me see. Gabite says, totally agree. I'm an APS-C wedding photographer on a Nikon D500. I don't feel the need for full frame. Well, like I said, man, I had full frame, and it's heavier, bulkier, way more expensive. And the gains, in my opinion, in low light, especially with our ability to shoot at stupidly high ISOs with relatively no degradation in image quality, and the minute amount of shallow depth of field that you're going to get between the two sensors, it didn't make sense for me anymore to shoot full frame. Jose says, okay, X-T3 black or silver? Oh, I don't know. It's tough. I've got I'm reviewing the X-T100 right now, and I do like that kind of like graphite gray color. It looks nice. It really does, man. But I would probably still just go with the black. I don't know. Maybe I'll do something crazy. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll get silver this time. That way I can differentiate. It's like, all right, hand me my X-T2. It's the big black one. Hand me the X-T2. It's that massive silver one over there. Yeah, I'll do that. I think I might. I'll be wild and crazy. I've had black cameras my entire life. Maybe I will just finally break down and get a silver one. Mike Doria says, can anyone confirm complete silent shooting? Yes, 100%. The X-T2 had it. I mean, it's not going to be silent shooting with the mechanical shutter, obviously, but it's got an electronic shutter, and Fujifilm has done silent shooting perfectly for quite some time now. So we're good to go on that. Mike says, I'm partial to black just because it's easier to be more low-key with. It's true. I'll agree. But if you want to be low-key, basically implying that you're wanting to do street photography, you should go with like the XE3 or the X100F or something like that, something with a smaller footprint anyway. But honestly, in my opinion, the Fujifilm XT2 without the grip and any of those f2 small primes, I still think it's the perfect size. You don't have to forego your ergonomics in order to get a smaller size. So, but again, it's just me. Let's see, what the hell? What the hell? Okay, here we go. Phil says 16-55 millimeter f2.8, no image stabilization. Most primes, no image stabilization. So that's what I think it's neat. Yeah, I mean, I think the 16-55 2.8 should have had IS, especially when the 18-55 has IS, and I absolutely love it. So I never got the 16-55 ever, because I think the 18-55 is good enough. And it also helps me with the slower shutter speeds. So half the time I was getting sharper images with the 18-55 because of the IS. But yeah, I think they should update the 16-55 immediately. I mean, they've got it in the 55-140, and I think that makes a little bit more sense, because now we're getting into more telephoto, and it's easier to blur a shot, and generally you don't need as much IS on the wider angles. But yeah, if they had image stabilization, well, I mean, they've got it in the new 8-16, okay? They need it in the 16-55, and they've already got it in the 55, or the 50-140. And they've got it in the 100-400. So that's all their red badge XF lenses. If all of them had image stabilization, that would be the killer, absolute killer lens lineup for Fuji. Carrie says, IBIS is great for non-stabilized old vintages and like Nikkors and Takamaros, but for Fujifilm lenses, don't need it. Yep. I mean, if you're going to shoot native glass, which I have done almost exclusively since I swapped to Fuji, it's almost been nothing but native glass up to this point. I love the Fujifilm glass enough that I have not really felt the need to go buy something else and try and adapt. They've got just about every focal range covered. There's not really too many lenses in the Fujifilm lineup that don't perform well. I mean, I am not trying to make excuses for Fuji, because they do have some areas I think they should work on. But without having the X-T3 in my hands yet to kind of see where I'm at, because I have no basis for comparison yet, but not being able to see where I'm at or where I'm about to go, it's really hard for me to be critical right this second. I do wish that it had IBIS. I wish it had a flip screen. They do say that the new screen is going to be touch, but I don't know how much. So, I mean, those are my two biggest gripes. I mean, it's got dual card slots. Most of the focal ranges that I need image stabilization have them. I don't know, man. I'm excited to try it out, though. I'll be honest with you. Michael says, shooting with a lighter body and lighter lenses can be tricky. I sometimes have problem holding it steady at longer shutter speeds, like 160, especially when you're in a rush. Yeah, well, I mean, that's a problem with any system, though. Jose says, for video, a real need, but for stills. No, man, you don't need it at all. At least you're a macro shooter. Yeah. For video, image stabilization is really handy, especially if you're going to hand hold your camera. I have found that for general purpose use, the 18-55 and the 50-140 are excellent video lenses. The 50-140 is a little bit big. The variable aperture on the 18-55 is a little unfortunate. And if they had been able to smooth out that exposure transition instead of it stepping and having more of a ramp, I think that is going to be a vastly improved feature for me, because I do shoot a lot of video. And I would like to vlog more with my Fuji cameras, but you know, I went on ahead and spent the $700 on the Canon M50 for most of my vlogging needs. Marco says, as an X-T20 shooter, I can't wait to upgrade to the X-T3. As an X-T20 shooter, man, you should have got the X-T2. Especially now. The price is just so affordable. Where the hell? Okay, here we are. Carrie says, I'm keeping my XT2 and XH1 waiting to XH2 for the next generation. Cool. Yeah, I mean, if it's working out for you, don't swap it up. Michael says, I sold all my Nikon system and went Fuji. I would never go back to DSLRs. Me either. DSLRs are dead, man. They really are. And they're dead and don't know it yet. Alan says, IBIS is great for video, but there are problems with it for stills. Along with the problems it brings, it would add weight, size, and price. All of those things, 100% true. That's the reason there's an XH1. So if you need IBIS, go XH1. I'm telling you, Fuji will fix any ills that you have with that camera. Phil says, Sony A6500 has IBIS. Not big, doesn't have problems. Fuji should do it across all their models. Even Nikon surrendered and did it. Yeah, but the A65 suffers from overheating, a shitty screen, terrible menus, bad ergos. It's still a bomb-ass video camera, though. I mean, I was at the Sony press event with all the other camera YouTubers when they released the A6500. I did a review on it, and I do think that it is a very impressive camera. Both for stills, the burst rate on it was fantastic. There were just too many things that it was kind of a turn off for me. I still to this day think that the A6300 is the better buy, personally. Nicholas says, how much less noise are we getting? One stop? I believe so. Don't quote me, though, but I believe it's a full stop. Xavier says, hey, from Germany. What's going on, Xavier? How you doing, buddy? Stuart says, no IBIS, no new bigger battery, no good. XT 2.5 upgrade. I will pick up an XT2. And that's fine. But it's not a bigger battery, but it is an improved battery. I think it's called the 126S. It's not just the 126 anymore. So you get about 50 extra shots per battery. So if you have the battery grip and you combine that with roughly 400 shots per battery, I mean, that's 1,200 shots. How many shots you taking, brother? I mean, unless you're shooting sports, then yeah, I can see maybe going over that. Xavier says, I did miss it. There will be no IBIS, or will be. There will be no IBIS in this camera. This is more their photography-centric camera. So if you're looking for IBIS, go with the XH1. I think that IBIS would have made it killer, but it also would have increased the size of the camera. I don't know that I would have hated that, but I know that if they had put it in, I wouldn't have been pissed about it either. So Alan's, or he's talking to Phil. Phil. Let's see. Xavier says, so what do you use for star shots? I use the, hang on, let me bring up my window because I can't see what I'm showing you. All right. This is the lens I use for like star trails and shit like that. This is the Fujifilm XT100, or why did I say the XT100? This is the Fujifilm 16 millimeter f 1.4. Throw this sucker on a tripod, shoot wide open, focus out to infinity. Amazing shots. Seriously, for anyone just getting in the Fuji system or something like that, there are 3 lenses I think everyone should own. First one being the 16 millimeter f1.4, the 56 millimeter 1.2, and the 90 millimeter f2. You could and the kit lens, 18 to 54 lenses. Those are your 4 lenses. If you need anything specialized beyond that, maybe grab the 80 millimeter macro. If you need super telephoto, grab the 100 to 400. If you need ultra wide zoom, they're about to come out with the 8 to 16, but I think most people, especially if you do real estate photography, will be just fine, perfectly happy with the 10 to 24. Paulo says, form factor wise, as a photographer, I think that the X-T2 should be in an XH1 body, and for video, the form factor should be in the X-T2 body. Much easier from tripods, gimbals, and drones. The problem with that is that with IBIS, you have to have the room, the mechanical room to shift the sensor around. So you have to have the bigger body. So that's the reason that they leave it out of their photography cameras, to keep their photography camera a bit smaller. Alan says, shots count improvement is due to the new processor. It is, but the new battery is an improvement as well. You have to consider that new improvement over battery efficiency improved it by 50 shots, all other things remaining exactly the same. So the XT100 actually shipped with one of those new batteries, and I did notice a slight increase in shot count. Richard says 4K does up to 30 minutes without grip. Woohoo! Right. No more of that 15-minute stuff. So you don't need the grip. You're going to get full performance out of the camera, no grip required. Xavier says, ever tried the Samyang 12mm f2.0? Nope. Once you get the 16mm 1.4, what do you need that for? It's got autofocus, native lens. Plus the Samyang is manual. And if I don't have to shoot, I mean, I can shoot manual with this. I don't know. Some of you all may have seen it, some of you may not, but I'll show it to you. Let me take off the. All right. Look at that clutch. This clutch makes it so that it's manual. And then you can manually focus the lens. And then when you want to go back into autofocus, you just click up. I love that sound. Yeah, so I've got both manual and autofocus all in one. Desi says, love the 16mm 1.4, sharp, low light, and close focusing. I know. I actually use the 16mm for a lot of my product photography because I can get so close. It's kind of like a pseudo macro, but I still kind of want the 80mm. Oh, is that wrong? It's a big beast of a bitch of a lens, but I think I still kind of want it. I don't need it, but I kind of want it. Mel says, my faves are the 60mm, the 80mm macro, and the 27mm. Yeah, I love the 80mm macro for real. I mean, it is a heavy, heavy lens. I've done some portraits with them, and I think it's a very important lens to own because I do think that it can duel as both a macro lens, obviously, and a portrait lens. It's just really sharp. So you've got to turn down the in-body sharpening all the way in order for it to not overly sharpen. But it does render nice bokeh. I still don't think it's nearly as good as the 90mm for portraits, but it's pretty great. Jose says, if you need IBIS, you can upgrade to a mechanical gimbal like this Zhiyun Crane version 2, which is completely awesome. Yes, I own that crane. I love that crane. Xavier says, I will try the 16mm 1.4 or wait for a cheaper 16mm f2.8. Don't. That lens is epic. Like, it is epic. You have to own that lens. If you're a Fuji shooter and you don't own the 16mm f1.4, you are doing yourself a disservice. And if I ever saw you in public and I said, let me see your bag, open that shit up, and there wasn't a 16mm 1.4 in there, I would have to slap you directly in the teeth. Den says Fujifilm XT3 plus 18 to 55 plus 55 to 200 plus 56 1.2 plus 16mm f1.4 is the dream. I've actually thought about getting a 55 to 200 to go with my 18 to 55. Most people don't realize just how awesome their quote unquote kit two lenses are, the 18 to 55 to 200. Those lenses are bomb. Literally the bomb. They're variable aperture, but they are the bomb. Seriously, if you just want to get into the system and you want epic, beautifully rendered micro contrast images, get the 18-55 and the 55-200. Both relatively small, relatively lightweight, and they will do everything you need. And you will not be disappointed a single solitary day in your entire life that you ever got them. And they're too cheap almost not to own. True story. The new manual focus prism effect, whatchamacallit, looks sick. Does it not? Does it not? Xavier says that I will be slapped. Oh, sorry, Xavier. You have to be. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm just going to say Masticina. I guess maybe I said it right. Masticina says, what would be the best prime lens to begin with for wide? If you want the best prime lens, would be the 16 millimeter 1.4. It is epic. Like, I don't know how to stress that enough. It is epic. So if you want the best, the 16 millimeter is it. Mick McGann says, "Do you think that the XH1 will get a deadly firmware upgrade?" Deadly? I don't know about deadly, bruh. They're definitely going to get firmware updates. All of Fujifilm cameras do. So yeah, you're good. I don't know about deadly though, but you're good. Colin says, issue with both the 18-55 and the 55-200 is that they are not weather resistant. I know, but I mean, tell the truth, man. Have you ever ruined a lens ever due to weather? I mean, I want there to be weather sealing in everything. I don't think camera companies should be touting that as a feature. I've said that several times. I don't think that it should be a feature. It should be standard. But I've never ruined a lens due to weather. And if I knew it was going to be raining, I don't care if it was weather sealed or not. I would still be like trying to protect it somehow. I'd be like covering it. I'd be like wearing an umbrella down the back of my shirt or some shit. Like, I'm protecting my gear. I love my gear. I spend a lot of money on my gear, and I'm not just going to go, oh, it's got weather sealing. You know, just throw it in the pond or whatever. No way. Xavier says, but the 16 millimeter is so expensive. It's not. It's $1,000. And it is epic. It is worth every single penny. Buy it used, man. Pick one up used. Colin says, agree. The great kit lenses, though. They are. It is delicious. Super Kim Jong says 16 millimeter 1.4 is next on my shopping list. 18-55. I sold it the day after I got with the X-T3. I think that it should live in everyone's bag. I really do. It's just a really good do everything little lens with image stabilization built in. So great content. Looking forward to more stuff. Keep it up. Thanks, Xavier. Have a good one, buddy. Mark Shirley says, I tried the much maligned Z7, and one of the things I really liked was the IBIS. As a hybrid camera, I loved the new 24-70, so lightweight as packaged and comfortable to use. Good. I mean, if you shoot video, IBIS is an extremely nice feature. I mean, especially if you're going to be hand-holding. If you don't want to always have to carry your gimbal, or if you're not always going to be locked off on a tripod, IBIS is amazing. It really is. So the XH1, as far as Fujifilm goes, has IBIS, and if that's what you're into, if you need video, get the XH1. If you do primarily photos and video is kind of secondary, the X-T2/X-T3 is going to be the way to go. Xavier says, I ruined 2 lenses and downpours. Yeah, man, you probably shouldn't buy that. Who ruins 2 lenses? Holy shit! I gotta be honest. I don't know any photographer personally who's ruined a lens due to weather. But now I can say that I met one on the internet that's managed to ruin 2 in downpours. Dan says, I shot Red Bull race event with the 55-200, and it is epic sharp. and I am at 200 millimeters. I know, like, so many people don't believe when we tell them, dude, these lenses, I know they're kit lenses, but they are ridiculously sharp. Fuji did not skimp. What else? Xavier, so no more non-WR lenses. I will think about the 16 millimeter. You're welcome, buddy. Glad I could help out. As a matter of fact, I'm going to get out of here too. I've got shit to do today. I'm going out of town, and I've got to finish packing. I've got to finish organizing, and then I got to drive about 3 hours. Oh God, what a day. I don't want to do today. I wish I could just not. I wish I could just skip today. I really just want to skip it. But the X-T3 is going to be awesome, man. I'm going to go ahead and do one more rundown of the specs. You're getting a 26.1 megapixel APS-C X-Trans backside illuminated CMOS 4 sensor. It's going to have a brand new X processor 4 with quad CPU, ultra high definition 4K 60p for video, F-Log gamma, and 10-bit internal. 10-bit 420 internal, 10-bit 422 external via HDMI. 2.16 million point phase detection autofocus. Man, I love the sound of that. I mean, it's a marketing point, but it sounds good. 0.75 by 3.69 million dot electronic viewfinder. So just as good as the Z6, Z7, and the Canon EOS R as far as the resolution. 3-inch 1.04 million dot tilting LCD touchscreen. We don't get full articulation screen. Sad days. Wish we had it. Continuous shooting up to 11 frames per second with the mechanical shutter, 20 frames per second with the electronic shutter, and 30 frames with the electronic shutter with a 1.25 times crop. It's going to have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Weather-sealed magnesium alloy body, and the specs just keep on going. If you want to read it, check the link I have out down below. If you're ready to pre-order, use that link as well. It will really help me out, and I would totally appreciate any and all support because I do these videos for free, and I'm up super duper early to help get the information out there. So yeah, any help is appreciated. But oh, I forgot to mention too, the bit depth is going to be 14-bit. So if you require the utmost in bit depth for your photographs, you're going to be able to get 14-bit. I believe they offer it in both compressed and uncompressed. If you want to check out frame rates in 4K, you're going to get it at 23.98, 24 even, 25, 29.97, 50, and 59.94. So video clip length, you'll get a full 30 minutes, so you don't require the battery grip anymore to record the full 30 minutes. No more of this 15-minute stuff without the battery grip. It's going to have a built-in mic jack with stereo, optional external mic with video stereo. So let's see, phase detection autofocus points is the 2.16. Focus mode, continuous servo AF and manual focus, single servo AF single. And you're going to get phase detection across the entire sensor. Now, I mean, this thing the specs just keep on coming, man. It is going to be a monster. It really is. Sync speed is going to be 1/250th of a second. Yep. I mean, this is going to be MVP of the year, I'm telling you, especially at this price. $1,499. It's going to be shipping in exactly 2 weeks. Get your pre-orders in now. I'm going to be pre-ordering mine right after I get off live stream. Hopefully I'll be in the first batch. I really, really, really want to be in the first batch. Oh, man, it sucks, though. Xavier says, have a good trip. Thanks, man. It baffles me that this has better video capabilities, but they didn't throw in IBIS like the XH1. Well, because mainly it's a stills camera, man. That's the reason they had the XH1 in the first place. There's no reason to buy an XH1 if this one already had IBIS in it. I wish it had IBIS But from a photographer's standpoint who does video secondary, I want my cameras to be as small, as lightweight as possible. So when you put in IBIS, you have to mechanically shift the sensor around, which increases price, increases size, and increases weight. All things most photographers don't want. So at any rate, guys, hope you guys have enjoyed it. I have definitely enjoyed it, hanging out with you all for 2 days in a row, man. There's just so many camera releases. I wish they would just stop. I need a day off. At any rate, guys, I will see you all on the next one. You all have a fantastic weekend, man. I am out of here. Peace.